The James Suckling Podcast. Wine ratings, reports, interviews and more.
Come on.
Bene, buongiorno James.
Yeah, nice to see you.
It's a really long time that we haven't seen each other.
That's right. I haven't been to the winery in probably 15 years.
More than that, I think.
What have you been, in the last few years, what have you really been focusing on at San Leonardo?
Well, you know that the passion of my father has always been Bordeaux, and this was clear. And the orientation of the estate has always been that. Also because we had the Cabernet variety since the 1870s, more or less. It was my great grandfather who was diplomatic around Europe, and he was very passionate of wines, of vines especially. And he when he was traveling, he was collecting them and bringing them back. And in 1891 or 92, there was the wedding of my great grandmother, so his daughter. And the first wine served on the list, together with it was fun because there was Veuve Clicquot, and this was 1871. So.
Yeah.
Well, 1891, it was Veuve Clicquot. It was this Perla Elbana. I have no idea today what it is. And there was a Riesling di San Leonardo. That was the first wine of the estate. And in fact, the Riesling has the exact same label as the original one of the 1800s.
Oh, okay.
The family crest has changed. Exactly. But the family crest has changed because I put the one of Guerrier Gonzaga instead of the one of my great-grandmother, who was De Gresti. And so, well, the orientation was very much into Bordeaux because we had the Carmenère. Then Trentino was quite advanced in Bordeaux varieties at the beginning of the 1900s, thanks to this gentleman called Edmond Mach, who is also was the founder of San Michele all'Adige, the school, the enological school.
Sure.
And he had imported also Merlot. And it was typical here to have a lot of Merlot, also because we were the southern part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, the one where there was more sun, So the wines had a little bit more alcohol and could travel. And the Pergola, Trentina, was giving big yields. And you know very well how for producers, this was the sign of a good producer was a good yield, And so this was an interesting part. Then, my father, he went into the school, blah, blah, blah. He made Bordeaux blends, and San Leonardo was born. Then, at the end of the 90s, the style of San Leonardo, which remained always very classic, because my father, and I really must thank him very much, he never wanted to change the vision behind his wine. But obviously, the world was changing. People were looking for more structured wine. There was many fashions coming along, and San Leonardo had been a new wine in the 80s, like Ornellaia, like all these new Bordeaux blends, but then had become a classic, and the world was looking also for new things, all the beautiful autochthonous varieties of Italy. So there was an interest for different things. And also my father, maybe, the age and so on, he was less into marketing, into communication. And the estate had really a sort of a crash, after 2001. It was very hard time. Yeah. It's really difficult. And I had just come into the estate. My father had a very bad cancer in 2001. And my father, he was in a big anxiety, and he wanted to see a future for the estate. So he said, or you work for me or you find a work, because I'm not going to support you. You need to find your way. Yeah. You need to grow up now quickly. And I was 23. So I came in, but I had no experience, James, apart from having lived the summers in San Leonardo, because I'm from Rome. I was born and raised in Rome. And so I started working and obviously traveling and going selling. And I understood also the market was changing, And together with my father recovered from this very bad cancer. Then he had a second one in 2015, but he's man made of steel, luckily, and he's really well still today and working.
Oh, good. Give him my regards. I haven't seen him for a long time.
No, he's a great chap. But so I understood that the world was changing. We needed to communicate with very small estate coming from a very unknown region. making Bordeaux varieties which had become indigenous in Tuscany, thanks to Bolgheri and Antinori and Incisa, but completely out of the world in the northern part of Italy, and this was a great wall to have to jump over. So Trentino was not producing, apart from fabulous Teroldego of Elisabetta Foradori, the region was lacking diamonds, let's say, to show the world. And this was very hard to try to impose our wine. And I was going to make a huge error, and this really, I thank my father, between him and me looking towards one end and he trying to keep the old world attached to him. We found a good vision for the future. And I also told him one day, I think I was 24 or 25, I told him, listen, Dad, the world is changing. We need to put a bit of this indigenous varieties. Let's put a bit of Teroldego in San Leonardo and make it more modern, more interesting for the public. And he looked at me and he said, "Sei un cretino, vai in ufficio." And he was right. He was absolutely right. And I must thank him, because he was so stubborn on his style and he never changed. And still today, this is the central part of the estate. But then around the gem, I grew and I made all these different wines, starting from the Terre, which is our second wine of the estate, which is it traces the path of the big wine of the estate, if you want, but in a much more easy approach. There is more Merlot. All our wines, all our red wines, are still only made in concrete vats. We do not use any stainless steel. There is no refrigeration, no heating, no selected yeast. We only do indigenous yeast. We do a pied de cuve about 1 week before, so that the cellar fills up with the yeast. I'm not against, it's not something that I am against technology. It's just that in this area, we are so fine with the climate that it's easy to make red wines, and we can do them in a proper way to respect their terroir. And I'm trying to follow this trace. Then after Terre, we made the Vete, which is our Sauvignon Blanc, which was a
that's
big
what I remember.
For an estate which was known only for red wines. And my father wanted to kill me the first day when I brought back this white wine that I had made with Carlo Ferrini, because
yeah, exactly.
Behind
is Carlos still there?
20 years now. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's still there, and he comes every month, and we have a phenomenal time together. He's an incredible guy, really. I think that also
that's why I was surprised with the Riesling, because the wines that we have from you are the Riesling, the Villa Cresti, the San Leonardo, and the Carmignane. And I remember the Sauvignon Blanc. I don't think maybe once I had the Riesling at you didn't really sell it much. Maybe exactly. I had it at your house when I had dinner there a long time ago. But honestly, it's the 17 is just a fantastic wine. I just tasted it again. How many bottles do you make of it?
It's on the back. We make about 6,000 bottles. Every bottle is numbered.
Oh yeah.
Like the Carmenere. These are coming out of practically one single hectare, based in the Cimbra Valley, which is a lovely valley north of Trentino. Because the soil here, we were not sure, so we didn't want to attempt something. We've always been convinced of the reds here, but the whites needed some altitude. We are looking always for very fresh, very mineral style, very vertical.
It's incredible.
And that wine was born between the passion of Riesling, but we did not want to copy just a Riesling. You cannot make a German Riesling outside of Germany. That is a fantastic wine that comes out there. And I was also very, I'm not a big fan of oak in red wines, but I'm a big fan of oak in white wines. When they are well made and there is acidity, I think it's something that is just unbelievable, the grace that it can give to a wine. What would a great Burgundy be without a great wood behind it? And so with Carlo, we tried to invent this Riesling, which had to become halfway between Burgundy and Germany style, trying to give it the complexity of a tonneau, so not barrels, not smaller barrels. These are all tonneau of 900 liters. The first vintage was made half in stainless steel and half in tonneau because we were, worried. When tonneaus are just new, they're very
you get a lot of wood.
Yeah, you can extract a bit too much. And the idea of San Leonardo is always elegance and freshness. This is always the drive behind every single wine we create. Is always freshness, which then turns out to be drinkability, which is a term which is not so used in general, especially on good wines, because it seems that it's always talking of something less important. But I'm a great fan of drinkability. I'm a great drinker.
Me too.
I'm not the best taster, but I'm a very good drinker, I can say. and I'm not satisfied by 2 glasses. I need my half bottle at least.
Good.
And so that's the drive. And then the Carmenère was born, and was born by it was fun because we had these old vines of Carmenère which compete in creating the San Leonardo, where there is 30% of Carmenère. But I used to love this Carmenère, and with my director Luigino, that you know very well because you met him, Luigino Tinelli. He's always the director. He was born and raised in San Leonardo. He's the great man here. I wanted to create a new wine, and obviously my father, that was 2007 actually, and my father, obviously, he did not want to make too many wines. So I bought 1,724 empty magnums, and I paid them cash so that they would not appear on the books of the estate. We bottled these 1724 magnums secretly with Luigino of pure Carmenère, and then we hid it in the cellar for 5 years because we needed one shot. We needed to get it right. And then I brought this magnum on a table with other Bordeaux blends. Very often we do tastings with my father, with Ferrini, blind tasting, also to see where we are up to, with our style. And I brought out this wine. I said, Dad, I found this wine. It's very interesting. It's a French wine. I'm sure you're going to love it. Very mean, very mean. And he tastes this wine. It looks like eating the Carmenère from our grapes. Where did you find this one? And then we showed him the label, and he said, okay, now you can sell it. And that was the beginning of it.
And so again, 6,000, about 6,000 bottles.
Yes, and that is made.
It's really beautiful.
It's made using 50% Pergola Trentina, which is great for Carmenère. But Carmenère is a difficult beast, if you want to say so, because you need to know how to prune it well, and you must not touch it too much while it's flourishing. It's a difficult grape, and the Pergola has a more savage character, more rustic, if you want, but has lots of identity. While the Gouillon, because on spur cordon it will not grow. I tell you, it's impossible.
Interesting.
We tried several different systems, and then my father really developed the one on Gouillon, but with a very, very long branch. So we have maybe 1.5 meters of vine to vine now. Because
it's single Gouillon then?
It's single Gouillon, but very, very long branch.
How interesting.
Because if you make a short branch, then it needs to make lots of leaves, the Carmenère. If not, it will not, it will make what we call colatura. So the flower goes out and transforms and loses productivity.
Honestly, these 2 wines are really fantastic. The Riesling and Carmenère.
I'm very glad you enjoy them. It's a new part of our world. A small part, because I don't want to grow it too much. I mean, again, our major interest remains San Leonardo because it's what defines the identity of our estate. And we have been working, so we have 10 years ago, I took away all herbicides. And then since 2015, we are running fully organic with a lot of biodynamic practices, because we use the biodynamic calendar for every action we do in the vineyard. So I'm not a fan 100% of all the biodynamic.
Like all the treatments and stuff, yeah.
Yes, all the biodynamic. I think you need to believe in it really very much. It's a sort of also um, personal philosophy has to be, you know.
I agree.
But on the other side, the phases of the moon for me is a science. You know, I mean, it's absolutely. If you're a good observer of nature, you can really see the differences, and this is has made a huge difference to us. But the cellar has never changed. So the white wines, we make them in a different cellar, James, because I did not want to introduce any differences in our original cellar.
Okay.
We wanted to keep it exactly how it was for the red wine. So we have these friends who own a different cellar for whites, the northern part of the region, very close to the vineyards where we pick the Vete, where we pick the Riesling, and we have developed this. And then recently, I have created a new company for Spumante, something completely different.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm very, finally, Trentino has found a very good hat under which to become more together with all the producers, which is the Trento DOC, which
Yeah, of course.
I believe that can be a good alternative for this region to finally find a little bit of soul, you know. This region unfortunately lacks soul still. And that has been for me the great difficulty. But I mean, now we're doing extremely well.
But so again, that's an old problem because the Trentino is so dominated by cooperatives, like large ones, and they haven't really gone after quality like an Alto Adige. It's been more about price. But I mean, that's history. But the thing is, and then it was just basically you and Elisabetta Foradori.
Exactly.
Are there any new producers coming along?
Well, there are some very good producers. For example, this young gentleman called De Vescovi Ulzbach. There is a Poyer that maybe you have heard.
Oh yeah,
about.
Poyer, sure, yeah, of
Poyer,
course, yeah.
I
like Poyer, sure.
But still, you know, it lacks the ability to have one single vision. So I always think about the consumer. You know, imagine a Chinese, but even a very much more instructed consumer like an American who has the vision of Italy. How can he define what Trentino is? You know, we don't have time in this world, and we need things which are interesting, and we want to, unless we are geeks of wine, we want to understand what the region is able to produce, and here there is not this ability of having one single thing. On one side, you know, I mean, it has become, for us, it's it's interesting because we're out of the world, you know. San Leonardo is a little bit out of all the schemes, and people appreciate this because they're very tied to the word is horrible, but to the brand rather than to the region.
I agree.
Something that I'm very happy. Today, we have all these means of communication, which are fantastic, like social media. I'm very active on them with videos. I tell stories about vineyards and wines every week, twice a week, more or less, in Italian and English on Instagram. And it has a huge following. And I must say it has helped enormously. You know, these simple tools have helped people out in the sticks like us to come out again on the scene in a very simple way and very true way, which is what I really appreciate of this.
But tell me, for example, is the San Leonardo, is it still Bordeaux blend, or are you using some of the Carmenere also?
So, James, when in the past, you know that there was written on the back label Cabernet Franc. In reality, since 1982, so my father planted Cabernet Sauvignon in 1978. We had the Carmenere in San Leonardo, and we had the Merlot since a long time. So the Merlot, beginning of the 1900s, and the Carmenere, end of 1800. Then in 1978, when he came back from San Guido, where he had worked for quite a long time with Mario Incisa, when he came back, he planted the Cabernet Sauvignon because it's what was lacking here. And he was still convinced that this Carmenere was Cabernet Franc. Nobody knew even what the word was. You know, Carmenere, like in Chile. like in Chile
Yeah.
until the 80s. I mean, it was
They
still
thought it was
Merlot.
Yeah.
It
They
was
thought it was
Merlot.
Merlot. Yeah, exactly.
Instead, here, being slightly more Nordic, if you want, less
Yeah.
where there's less heat, the Cabernet was not ripening so well and had this vegetal character, which the people thought it was Cabernet Franc. And it was thanks to Attilio Scienza, you know, the professor.
Yeah, sure, I know him. Yeah,
because he is the neighbor. He was the neighbor here. He had a property just down the road, and it was him who helped my father to understand that what he had was not Cabernet Franc, but was Carmenère. And this was the beginning of the 90s. And but still on the back label, my father had 60% Cabernet Sauvignon, 30% Cabernet Franc, and 10% Merlot. And he went on with this back label until 2010. And then I said,
okay.
Let's change it. I mean, now Carmenère, people know about it.
Yeah, and they like it.
And they like it, exactly.
Yeah.
And I told, and this also makes us peculiar compared to the rest, you know, of the bunch. And I asked him, why you never wrote on the back? Why didn't you tell the people it was Carmenère? And he said, you know, it was so difficult already in the 80s and the 90s to express a Bordeaux variety from Trentino. Imagine if I had to also explain what Carmenère was, which sounded more like a bad word in those days, because the culture of wine in Italy, and especially of vines, is very recent, James. It's not, it's thanks to a lot of the work done in the 90s and the 2000s. But before that, I mean, nobody knew about varieties. It was really few wines, and that's it. And then in 2010, I convinced him that it was time that we wrote on the back Carmenère, and that we are proud producers of Carmenère. Probably, and I am 99% sure, the ones which have the greatest experience on this grape in Italy, because apart from Ca del Bosco, which came also out in the 90s, and a little bit Nama, which is a lovely company.
Exactly, yeah.
There is nobody producing 100% pure Carmenère.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to make that wine, because I think that wine then reveals the style of all our wines. Carmenère is so powerful inside the wine that it really changed the identity, not changes, but gives the identity to each of our wines. And in fact, the Terre, which is our second wine, the Villagresti, which is a 90% Merlot with a 10 or sometimes a 15% of Carmenère, and the San Leonardo, the drive is always the Carmenère inside. And in fact, when I make like tastings, I leave the Carmenère as the last wine, not because I think it's the best, because I think that when you taste that wine, then you understand all our production again. You know, you see it under another point of view.
But because that's why I asked. I always thought it was Cabernet Franc in the San Leonardo, and when I tasted the Carmenère first, and then when I tasted the San Leonardo, I was like, whoa, I can taste exactly the same Carmenère style, that black licorice character or tar, you know, a really unique flavor that can't be Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, or Cabernet Franc. And it really is fantastic. I think that's like you said, people really need to understand that that's your signature. And honestly, it's much more, your Carmenère is very different than the ones, well, particularly than Inama in the Veneto, which has that more sweet and sour character. Yours has much more of that tar, and doesn't it all have any sweet and sour? It's just really dry, beautiful, dark fruit. And it's not pesante, it's not heavy
exactly. Either. That's the best compliment you could make to us, because what we look for in the wine is trying always to give it this drinkability, this enjoyability also of the wine. And in fact, if you look on the labels, there is no wine that goes beyond 13.00 of alcohol.
Oh, good point.
They're all under 13 and a half we are now. We are around 12.9 and 13.1.
Well, listen, that was a great conversation. And honestly, I hadn't had the Carmenère. It was nice to taste the San Leonardo again, but the Carmenère and the Riesling, those are real DNA wines, as you say, for your estate. and then you can see, I love how you say how they really define, what you're doing, and also the Carmenere, how important it is in your other wines, particularly the San Leonardo. But let's when you get your 17, maybe in early next year, let's taste together, because I'd love to continue the conversation, and let's hope that soon I can get back to Italy and visit you guys.
Waiting for you. We will be waiting here for you. It will be a great pleasure, and whenever you wish, we can do a full vertical so that you can see the style 80s, 90s, 2000s.
I would love to do that. And we can do that with facciamo con Carlo anche.
Sì, super volentieri. That
okay,
would
carissimo.
Be a great.
Thanks again.
Pleasure. James, thanks to you for all the time you dedicated.
So
to
nice. Thanks. It was really great to catch up. And it really meant a lot to me, because I had such great memories of your family and your wonderful father, and also this unique place called San Leonardo. Really is just, it sticks out in my mind.
Thank you. That's very kind to say. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, carissimo.
Ciao, James. Take care.
Ciao, Carlo.
Good luck for everything. See you very soon. Ciao.